Good morning and afternoon. It's Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific. Welcome all to the Sharing Show. I'm Kane, and today I'm joined with David, better known as the Workday Sharing Guy. We have Indy as a special co-host, Logan, Teresa, and special guests.
Thank you, Kane. And what is the most important thing about the Zoom chat?
Thanks, Logan. As always, when you're on the show today, all the attendees, all the panelists, please make sure you interact with us as much as possible. And when you're in chat, make sure you select all attendees or panelists so that everybody can see the question and everybody gets to see everyone else's sharing and answers. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to you, Logan, to take it from here.
Thanks, Kane. So right now, before we get started, if you can enter into the chat, if you're live on financials and you need some help, type H. Make sure that you've already changed it to panelists and attendees. H for help, Y for yes, N for no. Are you live on financials? I see some good activity. Making sure everyone's chatting to all panelists and attendees or everyone. And next, we'd like to introduce our co-host, Indy.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Indy from Texas. Happy to be on the show. Just a little bit of introduction about me. I have 6+ years of Workday experience on the Workday financial side. Initially, I started on the corporate accounting world, then moved into the Workday ecosystem as a financials lead, working with a lot of customers. Very excited about the show.
Thanks, Indy. So our themes coming up for the Sharing Show. Today we have financials, and then on June 10th, we're going to Workday Extend. On the 24th, we will have dashboards. And coming up in July, either the 8th or the 22nd, we're going to have Prism. And whichever day we don't do Prism.
Yeah, there's an invitation here for people to co-host in July, one of those two shows.
Great. Thank you so much, Logan. What's next on the agenda?
Up next, we have Uber to Workday with David from California.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is David from California. I want to talk about this particular integration. Uber has something called Uber for Business. And of course, Workday expenses should line up nicely with that. This is a picture of a post almost exactly 5 years ago. I used to work at Uber. And when I was working there, I posted. Now, there's on an earlier show, we talked about, wait, how is it possible that this page was viewed only 19 times, but yet there's 16 comments? The read count got wiped out at some point. But the idea here is while I was working there is we could take the file from Uber for Business and load it into Workday expenses. I just grabbed some recent web page updates from Uber. You can get a CSV file out of Uber for Business. And sure enough, in here you have, first, last name, email, but an employee ID. And that means an integration should be able to create this Uber for Business into Workday expenses. Now, whether or not you actually have Uber specifically as expense line, that's something that I would work with you on. I'm going to say happy 5-year anniversary to my post. I am now seeking anybody who is interested in beta testing my Uber for Business into Workday expenses integration.
Thanks, David. You can enter into the chat if you're live on expenses and interested in the Uber beta testing. You can type H for help, Y for yes, or N for no. So anyone who's live in expenses, or if you're going to be going live and you want to do the beta testing, just let us know and we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much. What's next on the agenda?
Up next, we're going to go to a few things for the sharingshow.com.
Okay, so we beefed up the sharingshow.com. We now have themes. And so you'll see here financials, today's theme, and then the upcoming themes. If you go to any one of those pages, you'll be asked, do you want to share or ask for the show? So you could line yourself up as a guest prior to any one of these shows. Now, the previous show was season 2, episode 7 on recruiting. And if you go to that page, not only will you see the agenda and you could jump directly to a particular topic, you'll be able to see the sponsors. You'll also see that these chat messages, we don't put anybody's name onto the webpage. Everything is CP for chat participant. 1, 2, 3. We had 20 different participants. The chat is quite active during this show. And there's a reason we're doing that is because we like to appreciate those who are active on the chat sharing with each other. So we will be giving away in future shows an Apple Watch or maybe Apple Watches to those who are putting comments into the chat.
Thank you so much, David. What's next on the agenda?
Up next, we're going to go to Indy from Texas with some worksheets and Drive.
As we see, there's a lot of focus on collaboration in the Workday world, given the situation. So I wanted to cover Worksheets and Drive. Benefits of Worksheets using within Workday is transactional data, Workday data, live data that you can use, along with security setup, collaboration, and ad hoc analysis. A lot of people in the accounting world are familiar with the spreadsheet environment. On the bottom here, you see that Workday Worksheets just works like any other spreadsheet. And the Drive also comes along it can work along with Worksheets, and some of the benefits of using Workday Drive is the document management, collaboration, and reconciliation. You can see on the right, you can go to the Drive from there and also access worksheets. So there are a few use cases that we see customers using the worksheet right now, and you can do expense analysis, headcount review, forecast reconciliations, even on the payroll side by using worksheets. And on the reconciliation side, I wanted to touch on that real quick, that you can use the Drive in conjunction with the worksheet, so the reconciliations can happen using the worksheets, and any backup related to those can be saved into the Drive. And we would love to hear some use cases from your side. Please do put into the chat if there are any use cases you would like for us to cover on the future shows. All right, so here's a use case I wanted to cover real quick. We have a Workday data, which is coming from the expense reports, and we're collaborating with the Salesforce data. We want to bring those together. So on the left, you see Workday in one spreadsheet, and then another tab on the spreadsheet, we could bring the Salesforce data. So here you can see within Workday, so this is within the Workday tenant, we're able to combine the expenses out of the data along with the opportunity data from Salesforce.
Thanks so much, Indy. That was great. What's next on the agenda?
Next, we're going to go to George from New York with Data Guardian reports. Welcome, George.
Thanks very much. I'm glad to be on the sharing show. So we use financials, and we use it for supplier invoices, and suppliers can have multiple remit to connections. People who use financials may know this. So this picture on the right shows you a supplier that has 3 remit to connections. And when there's more than one, you can mark one as the default. And so you see this one has one marked as the default and another is not marked as the default. Now in our company, it's our policy, it's our preference that we don't have a remit to connection marked as a default. And so we wanted to try and prevent that from happening. We tried to use a custom validation. We had limited success, so we came up with a different approach, something that we call Data Guardian reports. So what we did was we built a report. This is a picture of a custom report that we built. And its goal is to find situations where someone has turned on the default checkbox for a remit to connection. So there's not too much to the report. There's 7 columns. It shows you information about the suppliers. We have a filter on the report. And you see this is checking to see if the supplier has more than one remit to connection. And then there's a sub-filter also that checks to see if the default value is turned on for a remit to connection.
George, I just want to point out the golden field here in the filter. That's important on index reports. I'll be talking about that in a bit.
Thanks, David. Once we built the report, remember the report finds the data that we don't like, or the bad data. So we schedule this report to run every day, and on the right-hand side you can see you can pick what format you want. But the key thing is that we turn on the option that says, do not output an empty report. And this approach allows us to schedule this to run every day, and this report, if it finds bad data, we hear about it because we get results from the report. But if there isn't anything, we get no report. So no news really is good news. If we don't hear anything, that means our data is clean. And so here's what happens when there is bad data. We get an email, that's the top portion of this picture, and then we can log into Workday and take a look at the report. This picture shows you that it was a PDF, and it shows me that supplier 6814 that has a remit to connection marked as a default. We call these Data Guardian reports, and so far we built 8 of them for different use cases. And you can see we use them for checking our remit to connections. We also look for spend categories that are being used on certain supplier invoices if we want to keep a close eye on. We also check if any of our batch processes have failed. We have hundreds of processes that run every day. It's just too many to keep an eye on. So we have a data guardian report that looks for failed processes and also failed settlement runs. So you see in the red box, this is the key thing. You can make sure you turn on that option for do not output an empty report, and then you can use this for all kinds of use cases.
Thank you so much, George. It's very useful information. What's next on the agenda?
Up next, we're going to go back to Indy with Supplier Portal and Customer Portal. And before we do, I just wanted to mention, George, the chat looks very active and people are really interested in looking at what you're doing. Okay, Indy, we're ready for you. Tell us about Supplier and Customer Portal.
Awesome. Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, so wanted to cover this another topic of finance automation, which involves using the Supplier Portal and Customer Portal. Based on working with many customers, I noticed that a lot of customers were not using Supplier Portal and Customer Portal, but as we covered one of the features in the previous airing of the sharing show on the Customer Portal side, there are a lot of features that have been added both on the Supplier Portal side and Customer Portal. So let's talk about the Supplier Portal first. This enables us to do many tasks and collaborate with the customer supplier contacts that they can have access to the Workday tenant. They're able to maintain the data, which could be the contact information, settlement information, along with view and modify procurement document, purchase orders, catalog, and so forth. And with that, what we are able to do is on the Supplier Portal side, we are able to connect with the supplier contacts. So that will eliminate a lot of back and forth that could be happening through emails or the manual process. So really bringing the automation side by using the Supplier Portal. All right, so along with the Supplier Portal, we also have the Customer Portal. Where you can add or remove worklets from the dashboard, add announcements as we talked about earlier. You can also make credit card payments leveraging the Customer Portal now, which is a feature that came out in 2020 R1. So on the bottom here, this is a login. After the customer contact is logged into the tenant, they're able to see this. So the example we wanted to cover on the show today is the self-service example of Customer Portal, where we're able to create a dashboard on the Customer Portal itself, which eliminates customer invoice and disputes inquiries significantly. So the steps that are involved for us to create the dashboard for the customer contact, first you would create an account for the customer contact so they can log into the Workday tenant. The second step is set up security, and then you create the dashboard, and then it involves customizing the open invoices standard report, which are used on the dashboard. So we would love to hear from you. If you are currently using Supplier or Customer Portal, do let us know in the chat, please.
Thank you, Indy. Yeah, definitely. Let us know in the chat if you're using it and if you need help with it or if you have questions about it.
Thank you so much, Logan and Indy. What's next on the agenda?
Up next, we're going to go back to David from California with index reports.
Okay, as mentioned earlier in George's report, and for all those who are asking George for that report, like George said, he'll be putting it on community. And don't forget on thesharingshow.com, there's a dedicated page for each episode where content can be posted there as well. So let's talk about index reports. The most important thing about index reports, first off, it's tied to what your data source is. And then there could be a data source filter that comes with that data source. But what I want to highlight is the filter tab. And the interesting part here is the golden fields. If you didn't know what yellow meant when you see it on your screen, those are fields that are indexed. Now, I actually have seen this recently, a report in which, in this case, it's time clock events, and there were close to 1 million. I'm pretty sure it was over 700,000. It ran quickly as soon as this was added. Now, if you actually need to and absolutely have to add into your filter something else, it all comes down to testing. Right? So as soon as you go non-golden in your filter, that could happen where your report no longer is quit. In my case, the report with the golden only ran within seconds. And then when I went outside of golden, it took hours to run. So just wanted to highlight in case people weren't aware of that. Quite often in financials reporting, you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of lines.
That was great information, David. Thank you so much. It's golden information. And what's next on the agenda?
Up next, we're going to have Indy join us again, and we're going to talk about a brainstorm.
Yeah, so here's an example of an ask of the brainstorm that we have been covering on the previous shows as well. This particular one is related to the mass upload of items or the images for the supplier catalog. So if you have any other examples of the brainstorm that you would like us to cover in the future shows, please do send those to us.
Okay, and Indy, I want to point out that in this particular brainstorm, it doesn't have much votes because within a few days, there were comments on the brainstorm and it was solved. Not only that, it was posted and then answered on May the 4th. And so, those who are looking for answers, you can post questions on community, but you could also post a brainstorm, and May the 4th be with you.
Thanks so much, David. What's next on the agenda?
Up next, we're going to go to Florida with Keith for Prism.
Hi, this is Keith, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk with you guys about Prism. Prism, Workday calls this Prism Analytics, and there's two major components of that. One is the data warehouse side of this, and so some of you may or may not be aware of this module. It allows you to import data from other systems in a number of scenarios that we'll touch on here, and it's part of Workday, but it actually is separate from kind of the Workday core data. You have the Workday Prism data, and so three of the common use cases are to bring in, one of them is to bring in historical data, be that finance or HR, and I have a finance example here that we'll look at in a moment. So you could bring in data from a legacy system, and then you can through, if you're familiar with SQL, it's basically the same type thing of doing joins where you can join legacy data to Workday core data. And essentially what you're doing from the Workday data is you're pulling it from Workday into Prism, and then you can transform it, combine it, filter it, summarize it, whatever you need to do, and then you publish it back into Workday as a new data source that you can then secure differently, and you can write any of your normal reports, whether it be composite, advanced, matrix, whatever it might be. A second example would be to bring data from an external system that you may be getting daily updates, whether that's from Salesforce or from ServiceNow or whatever other systems you have in your environment, and then you can schedule that to run on a daily basis to do the updates, merge it with Workday data, or have it be standalone and publish it into Workday and show up on dashboards or whatever adds value in your environment. The third scenario is, let's say you're looking at headcount reports, and traditionally from a headcount standpoint, if you don't have access to the full HR data in your company or in your tenant, you're only going to see the people who report to you as opposed to the full headcount. And if you want to share that summary data with the whole tenant or with a company or a broader group of users, you can pull some of that core HR data into Workday and then summarize it up, publish it back into Workday, and add it to dashboards. And when you're publishing it back in, you have to define what the security, who's going to have access to this data, so you can give a broader group of people access to that summary data. So from a historical finance scenario, what you're seeing here is donations. So the organization I work with is a group of missionaries, and so our revenue is all donations from churches or individuals. And so what you're seeing here is 2018, 19, and 20, that's core Workday financial data. We went live in 2018 with Workday Finance. All the other years is legacy data that we have pulled into, we did a mass load into Prism, and then we combined those together to do this matrix report that you're seeing. And if we drill in on one of the rows from like 2012, we can actually see all the individual transactions and the dates, and you also see the donation info notes. Those are the old GL transaction numbers from the legacy system. You also see the donation type and journal source are blank. That's because the legacy system didn't have those type things. Those are our Workday core. And so if we were to look at the 2018 and newer, we would see data in those columns. So what does this look like in Workday Prism? So this is a screenshot from Workday Prism, and you read it from the right to left to the right. And so what you're seeing there, BDS, and these are the actual names of the data sources in Prism. We use BDS as a acronym for base data set. And so you have the donation history that's coming from the legacy system and some other values as instances that we want to combine up. You go to the next step and you see the donation history object and a member donations. The member donation, the lower one, is actually coming from a report that's web enabled or that's Prism enabled in Workday Core. And the donation history above, that is the actual things that we loaded. And then we do a join to join that together and then publish that out. And we use it for lots of different reports. And because it's a data warehouse type thing, it's very quick. And so that whole object, when it's published out, is essentially, it's going to be data warehouse fast, as opposed to the way it's essentially an index data source. So another piece of this is that we have another piece of Prism. So you have the data warehouse component, but then you have the data discovery tool. And we're going to get into more details on this when we do the Prism show here before long, later this month. And what you're seeing here is the ability to drag and drop to create new visualizations. And now you can actually do tables in here. So this is a way to allow a broader group of your users that may not be comfortable using Report Writer or Matrix reports. You can give them access to data discovery and give them access to the appropriate data sets that they need. At the moment, that is only available for people who use Prism. But as of this fall, when R2 comes out, data discovery will be available for everybody to use. The difference is data discovery this fall will not have access to Prism data, but will have access to core data objects within Workday, whether that's a worker or general ledgers or expense lines. And so there's a lot of data objects that they're getting ready to roll out with data discovery from core Workday, because right now even Prism users that use data discovery, the only way we can use it is off of the data that's literally in the Prism data warehouse. And so we're all excited that this fall we'll have the ability to not only use it for Prism, but we'll also be able to use it for core data objects as well.
So Keith, thank you. We are a little bit ahead of schedule. So you mentioned the upcoming Prism theme. That'll be in July, but the next show that comes up, you're the co-host and it's on Workday Extend. Did you want to just say a brief teaser for people about the upcoming show 2 weeks from today on Workday Extend?
Yeah, so as of this past week, Workday Extend, after 2 years, is finally generally available. And so we're thrilled that other organizations will be able to take advantage of that. And we've been using it for 2 years, and many other early adopters have been using it for 2 years. And so when we have this other show, we're going to be giving examples, and we're hoping that other people that are a part of the show here may opt in to share some of their real-world examples as well. We've got 5 apps that are live in our production tenant, and so we're looking forward to being able to talk about that more and giving you some real-world examples and ideas of how you might be able to take advantage of it in your environment.
Keith, also check the chat because some comments and questions are coming in for you. So thank you, Keith.
Thank you so much, Keith. So now we would like to thank our co-sponsors. First, we have Rootstock. That's Rootstock software is for companies that manufacture, distribute, service, and or repair goods. From sales to customer service, engineering to production, supply chain to inventory, Rootstock's cloud ERP is broad and deep. Rootstock software is a Workday partner and is fully integrated with Workday Financials and HR for a seamless, robust, and deep ERP solution. And we'd also like to thank Kimberly from Scout. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Scout RFP is Workday's latest acquisition, joining the Workday family in 2019. Scout RFP's strategic sourcing platform empowers hundreds of procurement teams around the world to manage billions of dollars in spend, driving bigger business impact. The intuitive cloud-based platform encompasses everything from project intake through sourcing pipeline to contract and supplier management to RFX and reverse auction tools. By centralizing sourcing data across the enterprise, the Scout RFP platform helps teams maintain business continuity, reduce operational risk, and increase collaboration among sourcing professionals, business stakeholders, and suppliers. Together, Scout RFP and Workday now support the entire source-to-pay process, making it more streamlined than ever. If you'd like to learn more, visit scoutrfp.com today and watch the next financial-focused episode of The Sharing Show.
Thank you, Kimberly. Also, even though we're down to the final minutes, it's not too late to put a comment in the chat or a question for Kimberly. So we will keep the chat open for a couple minutes at the end here. Thank you again, Kimberly. And Scout?
And of course, we'd like to thank Dovetail. Dovetail provides HR service delivery software that reduces the number of questions into HR by over 50%. Dovetail also provides emergency response management software that provides HR with the tools to manage all coronavirus-related questions from employees. Dovetail is also tracking COVID-19 case volumes from HR teams globally. And so to learn more, you can visit dovetailsoftware.com, and we appreciate your support.
Thanks, Logan. It's Kane here from Dovetail. Just wanted to mention about that COVID-19 tracking. So we have been doing daily tracking of cases that are questions that come into our customers through their HR department about employee-related coronavirus questions, basically. So we see a large volume over the months, obviously. And the interesting thing is last week we saw the first decline. There was a 21% decline since the start of our analysis, which has been, I think it's in our 13th week now. So that's an interesting fact and a nice positive fact as well. If you go over to our website, the very first homepage, you'll see a green button in the top that says HR COVID stats, that you can see these daily stats, and we also do a weekly analysis of those as well. So that being said, this has been a great show. I think it's our first financials show, and it's been incredibly interesting for everyone to hear. Looking forward to more of these. As you know, we record these shows and post them onto our YouTube channel. So we'll have this one up later today or later this week. And if you head over to the YouTube channel and hit the like and subscribe, you'll be able to get notified when this particular episode is up. There's plenty up there, lots of content that you can go look at and revisit. And I think we're at the end of the show. So without further ado, I will say to everyone, have a great workday.